going to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and to remain standing and to remember all those serving in harm's way across the world. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and I want to thank everyone for attending the Village of Woodbury Planning Board meeting of August 2nd, 2017. Introduce board members and my consultants. To my right, we have Robert Anzalone. To my left, we have Sandra Capiglione, Chris Chiavelli, Rich Cottagio, Gail Nogel, our secretary. Over to the far left, we have Stu Turner, our planner, Rick Golden, our attorney, John Collins, our traffic engineer, Dennis Lindsay, our engineer. He'll be joining us shortly, and I'm Maria Hunter, your chairperson. Board members, have you had a chance to review the minutes from July 19th? And if so, do I have a motion to accept?
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. First item on the agenda is Highland Mills Center Group. Review and discuss application submitted for a proposed 84-unit senior housing complex on vacant property located off of Route 32 near the intersection of Ford Avenue and Highland Mills. Said property is known in the Village of Woodbury tax maps as Section 218, Block 2, Lot 7, 9 through 11, and 13. Applicant here, there he is. Good evening. Is the microphone on?
Microphone on.
There we go.
Check.
All right, before you start, I just want to note for the record.
Engineer in the house.
Engineers in the house? All right. Just for the record, I want to note that on July 20th, we received response from the Orange County Department of Planning. They had a couple things written on there. I'm sure you received a copy as well, Mr. Litko?
To my knowledge, we haven't yet received it.
Okay. That was on the 20th, we received it. We received a copy of the petition to the village board. We received a revised, on the 27th, a revised EAF. And then the applicant submitted paperwork on July 27th. All right. Rick, do you have any comments on this before I have Mr. Lithgow speak?
The only thing I just sort of set the stage for this is that at our last meeting, there was a request to have a notice of intent circulated under seeker. And our advice to this board was that it would be premature to do so because there was not yet filed a petition with the Board of Trustees that would at least have on record that there was a zone change being requested because this application does not comply with current zoning. Since that time, the applicant has submitted a petition. It contains some deficiencies or has some deficiencies in it that have been identified by consultants to the village board, and the applicant is working on, I believe, has submitted a revised petition, and if there is any other deficiencies, he will be supplementing that to the satisfaction of the village board. But I think that presently, for seeker purposes, presently there is filed a petition with the board that would then be appropriate for this board under seeker to go ahead and take the initial steps of a notice of intent to be lead agency to be circulated. Typically, not typically, but required by the seeker regulations is that when you circulate that notice of intent, it contain the basic plan as it now exists along with an EAF. You'll be hearing from Stu with respect to the EAF, but just very generally is that the EAF that was presented was deemed deficient. It has been revised. Stu believes, and I concur, that there are still deficiencies in that EAF. So my suggestion to the board is that it would still be appropriate for this board to start the seeker process, is to go ahead and declare your notice of intent to be lead agency, but that it will not be circulated until a second revised EAF is submitted to the satisfaction of your planner. And as soon as your planner determines that it is satisfactory, it can then be circulated. Our office will circulate the notice of intent along with the necessary documentation.
Thank you. Mr. Lithgow, your comments after hearing from our attorney?
We're entirely agreeable. We'll submit a revised EAF. I did look at the memo briefly that the planner provided tonight. I think they're all pretty ministerial kinds of actions. So we'll submit something, still review it, and hopefully we'll proceed on.
Okay. Board members, well, actually, Dennis, Stu, do you want to make any comments, or should I just?
I'll make brief comments because I think between Rick and George, they've covered the status of events. We do have, the village board has a significantly modified petition which incorporates things that we had asked for earlier, that I think you had asked for, or they had asked for, but it's a much broader petition. The one important thing that we've been discussing is that we needed to be sure that it was very clear that the applicant was petitioning the village board for a zone change, and that there was a clear definition of the area for which they were requesting the zone change. It was not the entire property that they own or control. So they resubmitted maps that reflect that. And then they submitted a revised environmental assessment form, responded to certain earlier comments. But we did prepare without a great deal of notice, and I'm not going to apologize because we got the EAF fairly late, and we did not prepare or send out a report to the board. But there are some deficiencies in it, and the deficiencies essentially reflect the fact that there is a 15 or plus or minus acre portion of the site that is to be, the request is to be rezoned. And we believe that many of the items in the EAF reflect the full site and do not reflect the portion of the site where the village board and you are being asked not just for a zone change, but for a site plan and a special permit. And there's also a subdivision that's going to be required. So our comments have a lot to do with describing the action more accurately, refining the numbers on the characteristics of the site, and George refers to them as ministerially, but I think they may be more substantive, but they're nevertheless not significant. And once the notice of intent is ready or the EAF is ready for circulation, the notice of intent to be lead agency can be distributed. And there will be several agencies that will be part of this coordinated review, including the village board, the DEC, the DOT, and possibly the Army, well, not possibly, the Army Corps of Engineers, and possibly the ZBA. I don't know. The applicant will tell you if they think they're going to need any variances. But so there are 5 or 6 agencies that need to receive this, and that's the action that's in front of you tonight. Really, there's no substantive approvals or anything like that. It's just to start the seeker process and to notify the various agencies. But as I've always suggested, and I think my colleagues suggest, that we should have the most accurate documents distributed for the other agencies so they know exactly what is being requested and what the characteristics of the request are. So that's the nature of our comments. It's in a one-page memo that we distributed just to you now by hand.
Thank you. Dennis, thoughts, concerns, questions for us?
For the action you're taking tonight, not really. The only question I have is administrative in nature, and that is that the applicant has submitted last Thursday a letter, the EAF that Stu referred to, and also revised plans. The procedures that you have established create a timeline when the applicant is supposed to submit materials so that we can be responsive to you, give you our comments, you can consider them before you meet at a meeting. With the late submissions, it gets kind of difficult. And what I want to ask the applicant now is that, based upon the reports that Stu and I filed and the things that you heard tonight, whether there's going to be another submission of plans, because I don't want to review these plans as which we're responding to our original comments to the board, if there's going to be another issue going out. And if there is, that issue should come in a timely manner. But if you say that this is the one we'll review, then we'll review that for the next board meeting.
I will ask the engineer to opine on that. I'll get back to you tomorrow, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Board members, Robert, any thoughts, questions you want to ask before we,
I had a question on the EAF,
okay?
and it was page 11 of 13, and is the project site located over immediately adjoining or a primary or principal source of the aquifer? And it was answered as yes. Is there a problem with that, Dennis, of any nature? Is there a danger of runoff, or?
Page,
Well,
page,
It's
Is this
page 11 of the EAF.
is it the new one? We have two of them. What date is it? Is there a date in the
No,
front
there's no
page?
date.
There's a date on the signature page.
Yeah.
Page 13, what's the date on page 13?
Okay, let's see.
It says July, revised July 26th. Do you have that
I
one?
have no signature on
Here.
the last page.
Here, page 13. Bum, bum. Yeah, he has the revised one.
I was looking.
Okay, so it is the revised one. So it's page 11. What number
Yeah,
again?
page 11, and it's number, letter L.
I think that answer
Last one.
probably
Yeah.
was dictated by the mapper. Let me just make sure. That is E2L, E2.
So that's what some of the questions that Stu had.
Yes, that answer is dictated by the DEC under their mapper. There are always concerns with regard to aquifers in terms of discharge of pollutants. So there are safeguards in your regulations in terms of what people can do on the site, what they're allowed to discharge, how they run their sewer lines, a number of things. That would be part of your environmental review. So to say, is there a concern? There always is a concern for contamination to the groundwater. And when they say this answer, that just means that you should be tuned in and make sure that all those things are addressed in the review.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Sandy?
Also on the revised EAF on page 2, under government approvals, that on B, C, that was supposed to be changed to yes, I think, right, from our last meeting?
Well, that's. Which one is it? C what?
Under B and then C.
I'm not sure about the Board of Appeals. JT, did you? We did talk about that, but we weren't sure.
At this time, there's no need for variance.
Right.
But if the calculations lead to other issues, once they're revised, they could come up, but at this time, no variance is required.
All right, so at this time, there aren't any.
No,
So
okay.
it'll stay as
So
is.
it's going to stay, okay.
Yep. Anything else?
Just on housekeeping, on Mr. Peterzak's July 26 memo, he keeps referring to, I think, Stu's firm as MN, or MPW, it should be NPW,
MPV,
right?
for Horace.
Yeah, it should be N.
Should be NPW.
NPV,
PV.
if it's referring to us.
Yes,
Yeah,
It should be
NPV.
N,
as in Nancy,
P, and V.
I will
That's it.
bring that to Mr. Fowles'
or
attention.
V, I mean,
Yeah, it should
sorry.
be N, P, and V. Good catch. All right, anything else?
Well, so this is just really for notice of intent. We're not really,
Yeah,
okay.
we're not gonna-
Okay, yeah, that's all I have for now.
Okay. Chris?
No, nothing now.
Rich?
Just two items. Go back to the last meeting, our attorney stated that there's a lot going on with the property, and he was going to review the easements and the deed.
Is your
can't hear
microphone
you.
on? I can't hear you.
Sorry, I thought it was on. At the last meeting, our attorney said there was a lot going on with the property, and he asked that the easements and deed be submitted to analyze whether there were any restrictions. Has that been done yet?
That was with the petition.
We have received some deeds, but there are other easements and things that are referenced therein that we have not yet received, and so we are asking the applicant to provide those to us in the building department, and we will review them. In my opinion, we don't need to hold things up for that, but that's something that we will take into consideration when you're getting into the planning stages with respect to this application.
Okay, and the other item is, I don't know if Sandy mentioned this because I was reading. She questioned at the last meeting that the tax map, the property listed as the owner was different. Has that been,
That's being corrected.
okay, thank you.
When you say corrected, what do you mean?
The wrong deed was submitted. We needed to give you the deed for 7. We
Okay.
gave you, I think, 220.
So it's going,
We did submit that last week.
so is it staying in the two different names? The Highland Mills Center LLC and the Lakeside Affiliates
Yes,
LLC?
yes.
So it will be two, because I don't think we have
That lot will remain with Lakeside because it involves
Okay.
the properties to the east. There's some
But
trailers.
did we have the ownership, the LLC ownership for the Lakeside?
Yes. There was a change
All
of
right, just-
ownership from Inc. to LLC. There were deeds affiliated with that which weren't submitted. They
All right,
submitted the
so
wrong.
do-
No,
me-
I think
do me a
the
favor.
question is, the county has a form in which they are asking for every LLC to identify its members. And I think what's being requested is, have you filled out that form in the building department?
I know I asked the applicant to submit that in July, so
So I guess what we need is
we'll confirm that.
a revised application with, we have the one form for the Highland Mills Center Group LLC. We don't have it for anyone else. So just,
Yeah, there should be an amended form,
if we have an amended,
For Lakeside?
a site plan subdivision
Right.
special permit, I think.
I'll make sure those are submitted if they haven't
Okay.
been submitted already.
all right, and you also are going to, Rich, you finished?
Yes, I am, thank you.
And I guess you're going to be submitting an application for subdivision as well? Or is
Yes.
that, all right, so you'll be working on that as well?
We'll be working on that too.
Okay. All right, so board members, with everything that we've heard tonight and discussed, we need a motion to declare with our intent to be lead agency pending the approval of the revised EAF to be submitted to the board and Stu's review. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
All right. Do we have a second? Is that, Rich, did you second?
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And you understand that this is, the notice of intent is going to be held until Stu gives us approval?
Correct.
Okay.
So should I notify you, Maria, when I'm satisfied?
Go through,
Or go through Rick?
go through Rick and Dennis, and I can be copied on it, and when you
Okay.
gentlemen, when Rick tells me, yes, Maria, everything's good, the two of you, then you'll submit the notice of intent and put it out.
That's fine.
All right?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Oh, wait, one more
oh,
thing.
time out.
I think for the record, you should type the action. You did your notice of intent, but type the action, and we would suggest that it be typed as unlisted.
We can type it without being, yeah, all right.
Yes, you can type it.
All right, so I'll make a motion to,
Type it, no declaration, just type it.
I'll make a motion that we type this as an unlisted action.
I second it.
Any discussion?
As far as it being an unlisted action, there's wetlands there, right?
There are some wetlands around the periphery.
And we should still type that as unlisted?
Well, you're going to, according to the guidelines that are established in the regulations, it's not enough, the site is not big enough in terms of rezoning, it's not big enough in terms of what's being disturbed. However, you're going to do an environmental review of everything, including wetlands. You have that whole environmental review to go through yet.
Okay.
So yet your concern is well taken, but
Okay.
it doesn't affect the typing in this case.
Yeah, just because it has wetlands doesn't, in and of itself, has no impact on the typing of an action. The typing of an action is dictated that there are two lists in the secret regulations, one for type 2 actions, one for type 1 actions, as to those projects that are described in each of those lists. If it doesn't fall within either one of those lists, then it's automatically an unlisted action just by default. The environmental review that you take under either an unlisted action or a type 1 action is going to be the same. You still have to take the same hard look at all the issues. The only difference, and it is a very minor difference in my opinion, is that the secret regulations basically say that there is a preference that in fact an EIS be conducted if it's a type 1 action, but it's not required. And the fact that it's unlisted doesn't mean, obviously, that you can't do an EIS. You can do an
Right, you can
EIS.
do an EIS.
So there really is no difference in your review, and you will take into consideration wetlands and all the other environmental factors in determining whether to give this a neg deck or a positive declaration
Okay.
when we get to that point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Just so I'm clear on this, who's going to send out the notice of intent once everything is Rick's office?
Rick
Yes,
said-
yes, Stu's going to...
Rick said he'd be happy to do it.
Stu's going to give me the wink and the nod when he believes that the revised EAF is in order. He will send that to what he believes is an adequate revised EAF to the board and to us, and then we will send out the notice of intent with all the necessary documentation and plans, et cetera, that we will get sufficient copies from the applicant. And when that goes out, we will be copying the planning board members as well as the Board of Trustees members with respect to that notice of intent.
Thank you. Mr. Lithgow, anything else?
No, I'm getting going well. The going is good.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Usually good to keep quiet. Boy, George, that's all.
Okay, just give me a moment here. Next item on the agenda. Gardens at Harriman Station, review and acceptance of draft scoping document for transit-oriented development in Ferenz TOD. The project site consists of approximately 130 acres. 112.3 acres are within the village of Woodbury. 12.6 acres are within the village of Harriman, and 5.1 acres are located in the town of Monroe. The proposed action is a TOD community and is located within the villages of Woodbury and Harriman, adjacent to the Harriman train station. No development is being proposed on the portion of the project site located in the unincorporated town of Monroe. The TOD will include approximately 1,400 residential units, mostly in the form of apartments and townhouses with some single-family dwelling units. There's also approximately 250,000 square feet of retail space, office space, indoor recreation, restaurants, bars, and personal service establishments. The portion of the site within the village of Woodbury is in the TVZD and encompasses 25 individual tax parcels. Section block and lot is 243-1-1 through 25. The portion of the site within the village of Harriman is in the PAD zoning district and encompasses 6 tax parcels, 106-1-35.1, 35.2, and 35.3, and 108-1-5.1, 5.2, and 5.3. Just before we go any further, I just do want to note that we did receive the minutes from the meeting of June 21st from the stenographer that was there, so the board members have that. We have memos from H2M and NP&V that will dated July 27th. We'll review those in a minute. We do have a draft scoping document, which was sent by Kelly, which is dated July 14, 2017, and the one that I'm going to be referring to on page 32, gentlemen and lady, is the one that I'm going to be using as a draft scoping document because there was an additional language at the top of page 32. So I just want to make sure that we're all looking at the same document. Rich, you have that one?
Yes.
Okay, Chris, you're good with it? You want to know what the additional language is so that we know what we're,
This is the one I have.
no,
I
we're not
have
using
no-
that one.
I have no red line.
Well, it was in the mailbox last week. You don't, all right, so we'll share. We did receive a scoping document from the applicant, and that's the one that doesn't say draft at the top, so, but we did receive that as well. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Steve Esposito.
Is the microphone on?
Esposito and Associates, yes. And we're here representing the Gardens at Harriman Station, LLC. And tonight, hopefully, this board will adopt the scope.
Can you speak a little louder or lift it or something?
Lift it up, how's that?
That's better, thank you.
Hopefully, the board will adopt the scoping document that has been circulated, actually been originally submitted to this board in March 2017, and to the Village of Harriman Planning Board in April 2017. This is our fourth work meeting on the document, and we've also had a public scoping session about a month ago. We've received, to date, we've received 17 review letters from various consultants and agencies. The agencies include the DOT, Orange County Planning Department, MTA. We've also had a pre-application meeting with the Department of Environmental Conservation, all vetting this document. And we hope that tonight we'll get to a point where the board can adopt it and we can move forward with preparing the requisite environmental impact statement.
Okay, thank you. And just for the record, on June 22nd, we did receive the applicant disclosure form that the county requests for the LLC group. So I just want to make note that we did receive that for the record. All right. Who wants to go first on that table?
Want the regular order?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, I'll be brief.
Okay,
We had previously commented on the scoping document, and the applicant had considered many of those comments and incorporated many of those. We reviewed the revised document as circulated, and there were only two items that we noted that were deleted from the draft that was prepared and distributed to the applicant from trying to incorporate all the documents. And one concerned water quality. It was under Section 3, Wetlands and Surface Hydrology. I thought originally perhaps they took it out of there and put it in the utility section because it does relate to the wastewater treatment plant, but I didn't find it there either, and it just looked like it's based on water quality testing and results from the site, nearby water sources, including the Ramapo River, and they would have to do that in conjunction with any wastewater treatment that they were going to provide. I thought it was an appropriate comment that we had there, so I think they should include that study or that information. The other one was on, they deleted information on site vegetation and soils, sun, shade, moisture, and how that might affect those soils and that growth. Frankly, that's not my area of expertise that I usually advise the board on, so I deferred to Stu's office on that item. Those are the only two comments that we had in our report. Other than that, we think the scope is satisfactory, subject to the comments of your other consultants for acceptance and distribution.
thank you. Stu?
We had given you a memorandum dated the 27th, and basically, we found that the revised document had responded to our earlier memoranda on organization and land use and policy, a whole series of things. It had been reorganized in terms of management and open space and the common elements and the infrastructure. I'll leave to John the questions of traffic and transportation. I think we had one or two comments. And a discussion of alternatives, which had been expanded. There were two items that we were a little bit concerned about, so I'll jump to those. Under the potential impacts, there appears to be a missing word on page 5, I believe, item 7, impacts on historic and archaeological resources. It appears that the words "may be" are stricken and are not replaced. So that was one of the important comments. The second important
Stu,
comment
can you
was
just step back
that...
for a second?
Okay.
You're talking about Kelly's or,
Well, it would be Kelly's, I believe.
just so that we're all clear, everyone has the draft scoping document that has page 32 with the added language in there, correct? We all have the draft that we're working on? I just want to be very clear about that, because I don't want to go nuts tonight. It's on page 32 at the top, the second line that I haven't read, it says additional mitigation measures which may be identified during the EIS studies and analysis shall be addressed. Everyone has that? You agree? Okay.
Right.
That's what you're
Yes.
looking at? Okay.
That's what we're looking at. Okay.
I mean, you did a good job, Steve, but we're not looking at yours right now. We're looking at.
It's okay, don't take
so-
it personal.
Okay,
He
just
doesn't-
want to let you know that.
But what Stu's talking about is in Steve's, the word "are." It is in
The
Steve's.
next, the second item
Hold
that
on,
I...
Stu,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Stu,
I apologize.
That's been
Stand your ground.
Pardon me?
Hold on a second.
All
So,
right.
On page 5, is it on their page 5?
I believe it's page 5.
Number 7?
A-R-E is in there, and that's what he was talking about.
Actually,
give me a
yeah,
second.
see the may be, the proposed action may be located adjacent to neighborhood areas that of historic value.
Are.
That are, so it should be are of historic value. It's not in the version. Well, the may be is in the first part of the sentence. That's, as
So-
long as it's correct.
Okay.
All right.
Which may be are you talking about being corrected? There's two maybes in that sentence.
That,
One has been corrected
well, the maybe
to
is crossed
are.
out. Okay.
So it's going, so we
Okay.
wanted to say the proposed action may be located adjacent to neighboring areas that are of historic value, that are of historic value, and shall be reviewed for impacts on on historic facilities. So Kelly, you understand that? Beautiful. All right. So I'm going to cross out the may be and put are in Kelly's on page 5 in the draft. All right. Next.
Okay, one more significant item on page 17. I hope I got this right. On page 17, it's, in our memo, it's the third dot from the bottom, the third bullet. Under Chapter 3.2, Topography, Soils, Potential Impacts, it says blasting protocols will be provided in accordance with state and local regulations. We propose that that be moved to a mitigation rather than an impact. The proposed protocols will be provided in accordance with. That, to us, that's more of a mitigation than an impact. That's,
All right, because your page, just give me a second, because your pages don't match Steve's. I just want to see what it says. So it would be on Steve's page 15. It would be,
sorry about that.
that's okay. Blasting protocols will be provided in accordance with state and local regulations. And you want to move that down?
I'm
to-
suggesting that be moved to, since we're including proposed mitigations in the scope, to be moved to proposed mitigations, because
Which is
it's
letter
not
C.
really an impact.
Okay.
The impact might be if there's blasting required.
Kelly, you got that? Thank you.
Got that, Kelly? All right, finally, I think I hope it's page 34, under Chapter 3, 12, Community Facilities Mitigation.
Hold on, let me get to page 34, hold on.
Okay.
Okay, what title?
Now, wait a minute. it's
It'd be
not-
under community facilities,
Yeah,
okay?
Community Facility, 12. There's
That's
As
page.
appropriate approvals
Right,
and development shall be required. Our comment was that that was just vague. I don't know if we...
Stu, give me 2 seconds.
All right.
It'd be page 30 in Steve's document.
34.
Page 34 on ours.
31 in ours.
Okay. Let's not get technical now, guys. All right. Go ahead. Is it under mitigation, Stu?
Under mitigation,
Okay,
Yep. Let's see now.
should be 31 on this one.
Okay. Yeah, it's the first bullet. Any mitigation measures necessary for inadequate community facilities, then it just says, goes on to say, period. Appropriate approvals and development shall be required. I'm just not sure what that meant. So if the wording can be changed to make it clearer for,
Kelly, you want to answer that, or Rick does want to answer that one?
any mitigation measures necessary for inadequate community facilities, period. That's a mitigation. So then what is, we didn't know what appropriate approvals and development shall be required.
Do the development of any mitigation measures necessary for inadequate community facilities shall be required. So then they have to develop.
Okay. If that's clear, that's fine. Okay, now,
You're good now? You'll change
Yeah,
the language for me? Thank you.
we had a couple of items that are our own personal nitpicks, so we'll let you decide whether you want to put them in. The references to the Napara site, we propose it be called the former Napara site.
I wholeheartedly agree with you.
The second is, and this really is a nuance, in scopes that we work on, we usually like, either side that we're on, is that a topic be addressed, not discussed. It says discussed throughout. It seems to us that addressed is a firmer word, and that maybe can be done by just a word change. But if you don't feel strongly about it, then I wouldn't change it, because it's a matter of interpreting what the word means. I just think addressed is a little firmer word when we're dealing with environmental impacts.
Okay, board members, that's on Stu's memo. That's the second page, the third bullet down. Rich, what do you think?
Okay.
With the word addressed or discussed and addressed?
If you want to change it.
Well, well, all right. Chris?
Yeah, I think if we're going to discuss it, we're going to determine whether or not we have to address it.
So discussed and addressed.
Correct.
Okay. Sandy?
Yeah, I would like to see addressed in, either addressed
Discussed.
alone or discussed and addressed.
Okay. Robert?
I would
Finality
agree.
on it.
All right.
Yes.
All right, so board would like to see discussed and addressed.
There was a lot of discussion on that through this process, so I'm glad we finally got to it. And addressed.
You got it? Thank you. Oh, my darling. She knows.
All the comments I have at this point.
Rick, thoughts, concerns, or we jump over to traffic?
Jump over to traffic.
Okay. Hello, John.
I like the word evaluated.
There you go.
Oh, my God.
We've looked at the document, and from the transportation standpoint, it's acceptable.
Thank you. Rick? Back to you now.
Well, I think that, well, subject to any other further comments by the board, but I think the next step would be, since the comments that were spoken about, that Kelly has identified that she has modified on the spot, that it would be appropriate to go ahead and have a motion to adopt this as the final scope, subject to the corrections that were made or additions and modifications that were made at tonight's meeting. And then we will go ahead and circulate that draft scope.
Okay, at this point, all right. Board members, I want to take a step back to Dennis's memo on Chapter 3. You want to throw me a page number, Dennis, on Kelly's, so I can figure out where it is? I think I may have had it, but I lost it.
Say draft.
Chapter 3, let's go somewhere in page 18 or 19, yes, 18, where it says wetland, page 18 of Kelly's memo.
Yes.
Let's start there. Under A, where it says existing conditions, so let's find it on,
It's the last sentence in red, I think.
right, but let me find it in,
It's not in there.
right,
The
So-
location would be on page
it would be on 16,
16.
under existing conditions, or 15, all right. So, we're gonna ask Steve. Why can't I find it in here?
It would be under,
Hold on a second. Okay, I'm just trying to read the words. All right, so it'll be on the top of your page 16, where the first sentence, the location of the site in relation to existing nearby water sources will be discussed. Then you dropped off where it says water quality testing. Any particular reason why?
yes.
Give us a, give me-
If you, as I stated earlier, we had 17 letters, a public comment period, or public session. The only two items that we, as the applicant, disagreed with was this particular item, which we discussed at in length at May 31st meeting. Reason being is that we have three
at the top.
drainage ditches or swales that are intermittent in nature. So the only thing we would be grabbing, is, a sample during a stormwater event. So it's really not a perennial stream. These are intermittent swales. Our wetlands, although it's rather extensive in the center of it, it's really a Class 3 wetlands. There's really no open water to it. It's saturated soils. As you know, the site was previously gravel mine that was never properly reclaimed. So there's really not surface water to sample. We do have at the southern part of the site, the Ramapo River does go through the site. As I stated earlier also, we had a pre-application meeting with the DEC, and that is where we'll be discharging our effluent from our wastewater treatment plant. They've already designated, or they've already required us to do what's called intermittent stream standards. They're the highest levels of treatment possible. We've already gotten our treatment levels, our limits that we have to design to. So regardless of what our water samples say, I mean, that we've already have our marching orders from the department who regulates those types of discharges. So from our perspective, one, physically, it's very tough for us to do baseline studies on intermittent streams. And with regard to the Ramapo, we've already got our marching orders for what we have to do there. So we did object to that one particular comment, and it was our opinion that the board actually found in favor of the applicant. So we did not include that.
Well, the way I'd suggest addressing this, it is difficult to have these water resources and be silent on water quality in a document of this size that you're going to get. At the conclusion of this paragraph here on water quality, it says, if warranted, for assessing environmental impact of water resources. If that's the case, I think that the claim that that Steve has just expressed now should be in the document. That should say that the board assess water quality, that the DEC has made a conclusion that intermittent stream standards will apply, and that there was no further need by DEC to examine this. But there should be some statement in there about water quality, even if it's simply to say that it wasn't warranted under the conditions imposed by DEC. But to be silent on it in a document like this, I think, wouldn't be correct.
Okay. I'm going to jump over to Rick or Kelly. How do we balance it out the best way?
Well, the applicant believes that you should make that conclusion now, and if you would follow that suggestion, as Dennis said, the document would be silent on it.
Right.
And there would not be, if anybody looked in the environmental review, they would believe that that was not addressed at all. And Dennis's solution, given the language that's in here, is that the applicant, for the reasons that it states, cannot or believes that it should not go ahead and test that. It has a provision in there saying that it's not warranted, but at least that process will be set forth in the environmental review, the draft environmental impact statement, that then will give the public and other involved agencies an opportunity to comment on that conclusion that would be stated in there, and then addressed in the final environmental impact statement. So I think that Dennis's way poses no undue burden on the applicant and provides for a process which is open, transparent, and allows other involved agencies and interested agencies to comment on it. So I believe that it should be kept in for process purposes, if no other.
Thank you. Chris, I'm going to start with you. We keeping that language in?
Yes.
Rich? Yes. Sandy?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
We're keeping the language in.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm so glad we're agreeable tonight. On Dennis's second, section 4, which would be on Kelly's page 19, which would be on Steve's page, hold that thought, 17 or thereabouts. Let me just give me a find.
Yeah, it's under wildlife.
It's under wildlife.
Vegetation wildlife.
Part A. Actually, it'll be on Kelly's page 20. It was, so it would be on Steve's,
17.
Steve 17. It would have been above where it says an overlay of significant habitat on Steve's. So it'd be the top,
Third paragraph on Steve.
yeah. Bless you. All right, so for on-site vegetation, the
Yeah, that's the
soils.
sentence. Oh, it's not there.
It's
For all
not there on
on-site
Steve's.
vegetated
It's not
soil. It's on
That's what I'm saying.
Moisture shall, special environmental consideration to successful habitation. Yeah, I would, I mean, that was taken out of.
Correct.
Yeah, and so what was the reason for that? That, I think we thought should stay in there. Dennis did throw it at us, but
We also did have
from an
that.
engineering perspective, no,
From an engineering
environmental
perspective. We also had that, again, in the May 31st meeting, that was our second point of our 17 letters that we kind of disagree with. And one is, we're still kind of scratching our head as to what it's really asking us to do. But then there was some discussion of, well, we'll evaluate those areas of vegetation that will remain, and particularly along the Route 17 side of the site, along the westerly side of the site. But, for those areas that are going to remain, we're not changing, we're not going to disturb those areas, and we're not going to change any of these dynamics of the environment, whether it be shade, sun, soil conditions, it'll remain the same.
Okay.
Well, I thought, I think there's value to leaving that language in there and explaining why you don't, if you want to explain in the document, in the full document, why you don't feel that you need to evaluate all of those items, even if it's fairly straightforward. that you're not, you're not impacting any of those characteristics that enhance the habitation, the habitat. So I think some language in there that acknowledges that there are these characteristics that are important, and I think the language is staying there because you can write language in the document that will say just what you want it to say.
I guess we're just a little unclear as to what that language, what it's requesting, and it's from our team, and it's our biologists,
Someone's got it.
Well, there are characteristics of the area that allow the vegetation to survive or to prosper. If you're not changing any of those things, we just think that it should be addressed and say you're not changing any of those things.
Okay. I'm going to keep this simple. We're going to add that back in. You'll figure
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure out how to
Thank you.
answer it.
Okay. All right, so we went over all three consultants. We heard from every one of them. 4 consultants, excuse me, Rick, I don't want to exclude you. How do you feel about Kelly's draft document, Robert?
I
you have anything
think
to add?
it's good. No, I think it's
Okay.
very good.
Sandy, do you have anything to add to Kelly's?
There was one thing.
That's okay, just
Hold on.
give it to me, just give us the pages on Sandy's document.
I just have it all. Hold on. Okay. So it's-
Isn't it great to be called Kelly's document?
It's a book. Bestseller.
Get the page number, yes, okay. From Kelly's document, page 32, under noise. Well, you know what, my pages may be different because mine's printed differently than yours, but it's under number 11, noise.
It'd be 33 in Kelly's document.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
33.
33. You have
Under
A, B,
S-
C.
Under C,
Mitigation?
and then the second one up, it starts with compliance with chapter 208 noise. Kelly has Village of Woodbury Code in TOD, and Steve, in your document, you left out in TOD. I think that's important, because that's a separate section of our code.
Yeah, there's really nothing in the TOD, or the transit, or in the transit village zoning district, there's really nothing about noise in there.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So,
You're referring to Chapter 208, Kelly is,
right,
which is the village noise code.
noise code, correct.
So,
What's the comment? I don't,
Okay, and
So it'd be your page 30, which says compliance with Chapter 208 noise, Village of Woodbury Code, and with Chapter 94
That whole
noise, Village of
sentence is
Harriman Code.
changed.
Okay, with Harriman Code. So it just say Village of Woodbury Code and
no, Kelly's version says in TOD. I think that's the extra language that we don't
in
need.
TOD will be discussed, and Steve's put in, and with Chapter 94 noise, Village of Harriman Code will be discussed. In Steve's document, he didn't put TOD. He dropped the word in TOD.
It was really just for in this transit-oriented development, so it actually makes sense to include Steve's language to cover both noise ordinances. I think that's what you did.
that's, I'm
Okay.
trying to see why that was changed.
Okay. That was.
So maybe it should have said within the TOD, maybe? It should have said within, okay.
And including Harriman is their code. That's what, so we're going to go by that, okay.
So we're going to say within TOD,
Village of Woodbury, or,
okay. Within the Village of Woodbury Code, with,
Within the DOT.
yeah,
Okay.
she'll take care of that.
okay.
All right, next one?
I think my other ones were covered with theirs.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good for now. I'm good for now.
Okay. Chris?
I'm good.
Rich?
Yeah, I just have one. I guess it starts on page 36 under section 15, hazardous waste, item A. And a question on the first bullet. Discuss prior reported spills near the project. The word near the project, are we talking about the former site up in the Para? Are we talking about the entire site? What are we talking when it says,
Which,
near, the first bullet, discuss prior reported spills near the site.
You-
Aren't we talking about the site itself and
is it
That whole
under,
paragraph
is it under
Para.
A or is it B?
it's A, first bullet?
So you're talking on page 37, solid waste disposal, number
I
16?
can, I can answer that if you want.
Number 15, the first bullet, it says,
15A, first
Oh,
bullet.
15, you want hazardous material, there we go.
15A, first bullet,
Oh,
it says,
discuss,
discuss prior reported spills near the project site.
yeah. Are we talking about near the site or including the site?
I would think it probably should be on or near.
Yeah,
Yeah, on or near.
Should be on or near
Okay,
the
and then-
project site.
are we talking about those spills reported by the owner, previous owner, or could these be by an agency as well, DEP, or?
They would have to look at all, when you're talking about reported spills, those are spills reported to governmental agencies.
Okay.
And so the applicant would be required to go ahead and look through those databases and determine what spills were reported on or near the project site.
Okay, and then what's reasonable as far as how far back does he have to go?
I mean, years?
Unreported spill, yeah, years, because, I mean, it's been there a long time.
Well,
I don't know how many,
I mean, if you go back 10 years, there's only one spill. If you go back 20 years and there's 100 spills, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
that site is all, a little concerned, so.
well, the board can put a timeframe on it if you believe
Well,
that's
I'm asking,
appropriate.
what's reasonable for the applicant? I don't want to,
well, procedurally, what we'll do is, our consultant who will be doing these Phase 1, Phase 2 environmental audits, the first thing that they'll do is they'll do an archival search. And that's the DEC, DEP, and any other agencies that regulate or inventory hazardous waste, spills, what have you. So that will all be part of those reports. And they'll go back as far as the records go back. So, what's available, we will evaluate, as part of our analysis.
Yeah, right, this is hazardous waste.
Okay?
So the
Anything
applicant
else?
doesn't have any problem with the timeframe.
right,
Yeah. And we'll go back as far as the records go.
okay.
Board members, anything else? Everyone's covered my thoughts and concerns?
Nope.
Consultants, anything additional you want to state? Including Kelly, since it's her document that she prepared? Or fixed up? Steve, any thoughts, concerns?
We're good?
All right, so with everything being discussed this evening, we're okay accepting this as our scoping document? Well, it'll be ours now.
Right.
We're going to be accepting the red line, green line that Kelly prepared for us and what we discussed with the additions, deletions tonight as our document to get it out to the public to review, and then we'll go forward, and the next step is public hearing?
Well,
What do we need? My steps are,
They're going to do an EIS based
EIS.
on this document. There'll be no more like public discussion of this document.
not this document, but when
There
they're
there will
prepared,
be a public hearing.
yeah,
when the time comes with the E EIS.
Yeah,
The
after this, which I
DEIS.
think for purposes of motion, you should call it the final scope, to
Final
be
scope,
very
okay.
consistent and clear under the secret regulations, that you're adopting this document as modified. You're adopting Kelly's document as modified this evening as the final scope for the project. Once you do that, the applicant now goes away for a while,
Yep.
and prepares the draft environmental impact statement. So when you get that draft environmental impact statement, that's when you will make determination mean, your determination technically is whether or not to hold a public hearing on that DEIS or simply allow other forms of public comment on the DEIS. However, you clearly will be asking for a public hearing on it, as you have done with projects of much smaller scope than this and projects of a large scope within the village. So, but that doesn't happen until after you receive the DEIS. The DEIS must be considered adequate for public review before it even goes out to the public
Yep.
or public agencies. After it goes out, you will, at that time, you will be determining and setting forth a public hearing at that time.
Okay. Board members, you're good with that?
Yes.
All right. And for the residents and people that are visiting in the audience tonight, if you understand that, the applicant is going to go and prepare the DEIS, which is called the Draft Environmental Impact Statement, and once this board reviews it and we deem it necessary, deem it complete, adequate, then will be presented to the public. It'll be, as always, the libraries, town hall, village hall, and Harriman. It'll be put out there and also be put on a website. And how many inch binders are we going to get? 3 6-inch binders at least?
3?
At least 3.
That's volume 1.
And maps that you're going to be preparing, are they going to be preparing maps?
Well, what we normally do.
Well, I want to discuss-
Right. What we normally ask the board, because it will be a large set of drawings that will go along with the document, that we suggest for your purposes that we do half sheets, so that you don't have these big 24 by 36 sheets, all over the place. So we print them in half. You can still read them; they're legible, but they're a little physically a little better, a little easier to manage.
Right,
But
so
we'll take a head count before we get
we'll
to that
take a
point.
head count on that, probably for the board members and probably for the libraries,
Yeah.
the half sheets, and once we get closer to that, I know the consultants all like to have the large format, and the small ones, so when we get to that
And
point.
digital.
All right,
Which we push.
so, I need a motion that we accept this modified document as our final scope, and the applicant can go on to prepare what he needs to be done. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
With changes.
With
With
modifications.
the modifications,
we make a
as modified, I said.
As modified, okay.
As modified, that's changes.
Okay,
So who made that motion?
I did.
Rich?
I'm good.
You made that motion?
No, I made a
Oh,
motion.
Chris, I'm sorry, I can't, with the microphones, who's seconding?
I did.
Rich seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you very much.
and, okay, enough said. Dennis, anything else we need to do? We're good?
No.
I'm offering a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and thank you everyone for coming out tonight.